we kind of pick up the slack by saying that if you ever need me, I'm available. So you always pick up the phone and you always answer it. Do you like the idea that your view of yourself is that you're completely available anytime anybody needs you, or do you believe that you're a great communicator, which basically controls the relationship and the process so that you're proactively communicating the information out and you're not relying on them to call you?
Your second statement.
Okay. So you believe that your number one asset isn't that you're available, it's that you basically are proactive with the information so that you can put aside any of their fears and challenges because you're addressing them before they even become an issue.
Correct.
Okay. So when we talk about your value, when we talk about what makes you referable, that's not just it's not a lighthearted conversation that we have to have with ourselves, because if you believe that your number one, what's that?
Doug?
Yes.
Hey, this is Saul.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, I've been on the call. I've got the video. You know, I hear you guys talking, but I don't have anything else, and you can't hear me, so I just called in. So sorry to interrupt.
Yep, no, you're okay. We can hear you loud and clear. Hey, Saul, I want to introduce you to Bobby. Bobby's down there, and you're in Talladega, right, my friend?
I'm in Sylacauga, not far from Talladega.
Got it.
Okay.
Saul, where are you at?
Yeah.
I'm in Huntsville.
Yeah, he's north of me.
Okay. Okay. So relatively speaking, you guys are essentially neighbors. You guys are the only two LOs that we have in Alabama right now. So we have
one more.
Oh, who's that?
Debbie Free. She used to work with me. She's came in under Kenneth, but she's in Albertville.
Got it.
Okay. Kind of close to where Saul's at.
Yeah, closer.
Got it. So Saul, you've heard what we've talked about so far about what makes you referable, correct?
I heard. I was listening, but then trying to scramble to figure out how I could connect with you guys. But
okay.
Yes.
What do you think makes you referable, Saul? Like, when you show up to a presentation, whether it be with a consumer or a realtor or some sort of affiliated relationship, what do you believe is your number one value that makes you somebody that these people would refer to?
I think they feel that I'll get the loan closed.
Okay, so you believe that your value is your ability to close a loan.
To yes, get through, and again, I work with some difficult loans. Yep. So I think that's a big plus that they think that I will figure out a way to get the loan closed.
Okay. So when you look at your business over the last, let's say, 2 years, how much of your business has come from the same agents or a stable of agents referring you a consistent, steady stream of business?
Well, that's a tough question because I get some singles, but I've got a core and not enough, probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 that I feel I get most of their deals. They call me first.
Okay. So when you meet with a realtor for the first time, or you sit down with a consumer for the first time, your number one presentation is, you can trust me, I will get your loan closed.
Well, and I think what Bobby kind of said, that I'll communicate with them and let them know, because what I see is there are quite a few loan officers that they won't tell the realtor when there's a problem until the realtor calls them when it's the week of closing and they haven't heard from anyone.
Right.
So
right.
I'll communicate with them and let them know good news or bad news. But I've had situations where I've taken it and we might be 2 or 3 weeks into the loan and I can't close it, or I see an issue, and I'll find someone that can close it.
Right, right. So what I hear both of you say in your own words is that you guys are not only very high integrity, you're going to deliver on what you promise, but more importantly, you guys believe that communication, good, bad, or indifferent, is the best way to run a business that's referable.
I guess that's how I've kind of based it. And, you know, and and coming to SMP is making me more confident that I can close loans on time, but that's
Absolutely.
been an issue that's caused some problems, is having to delay closings.
Okay. So here's what we're going to talk about moving forward for the foreseeable couple days, or the couple sessions that we're going to have. I'm going to help you guys distinguish the difference between being an originator and a loan officer. Okay? You guys are both exceptionally good LOs, meaning there's nothing that I can teach you to be a better LO. You guys are, in your own right, probably better LOs than I ever was. What I'm going to spend most of my time with you guys on is how to become a better originator. And let me define the differences for you. And sorry, Bobby, if you've already heard me talk about this, but being an originator is somebody who originates the relationship, originates the trust, originates the confidence, originates the future opportunities. You are essentially the entrepreneur of your mortgage practice. The loan officer, for a lack of a better term, is the manager and the technician of the actual loan details. Once the loan has been originated, meaning once the person's agreed to move forward with you, that's when the loan officer takes on and moves forward until the closing. A lot of the times we fail in what we do every single day because we don't capitalize on how well you guys probably do communicate. And I just want to bring it to your consciousness because I think a lot of the times we get so frustrated with our business having to jump into the minutia of the file that we don't look at it as probably a tremendous benefit. I'm not saying that you need to spend your life in the file. What I'm saying is that if you have to be sucked into the details of the loan, you might as well make it worth your while. Correct? I mean, if you're going to have to do all the menial tasks and all that, don't you think it would be great to get something out of it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Bobby, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now that we all agree that we would love to see the benefit of the work that we put into the details and managing the file, we would also like to see the benefit of what we do that makes us so referable, which is being a great communicator. So what we have to realize is that there's two hats that we have to wear. The hat that you guys wear in the beginning is everything you do to originate the relationship. What happens from the moment you take that loan application and turn it in, that's when you spend most of the time being an originator. The problem is that throughout the process, you guys probably get many chances of leveraging the relationship, but you fail on it because you're so caught up into the details of the loan. Let me ask you guys this question. How many times through the process have you guys received a thank you during the process? How many times has a listing agent, a buyer's agent, and a client ever said thank you through the process to you for your ability to communicate? Or just said thank you for calling, or thank you for this, or thank you for that?
I've gotten some,
It's
but
happened to me recently.
It's happened recently, and you've gotten some. Okay, so
Yeah.
here is where I'm going to politely challenge you guys on what you believe is your greatest referable strength. You guys have both said communication is your greatest asset, and that makes you extremely referable. But yet you just now said that very few times do you guys get consistent, repeatable, predictable opportunities to where you know people are going to say thank you and they're going to appreciate you through the process. Would you guys like to learn how to improve on that?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think it's important to recognize and to create moments where you get statements of appreciation from your realtors and clients? It's not a trick question.
I think if that happens, they're going to refer more deals to me and refer me to more of their counterparts.
That's a pretty good assumption, yep. At the end of the day, doesn't it validate everything we do? I mean, really at the core root of it, every time somebody says thank you to or acknowledges what you've done, it makes you feel pretty good, doesn't it? It makes you feel like you should do it again, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reality of what we're talking about doing is we're talking about creating a process. We're talking about creating a predictable, repeatable process that orchestrates those situations repeatedly. And it's not that difficult because you guys are really good loan officers. So the work isn't having to teach you guys to do better or do more of your job. It's more or less how do we create situations that allow this stuff to happen more consistently. So I'm going to swim upstream a little bit, not get ahead of ourselves. So when we go into meeting with our realtors for the first time, or we go in to meet with our clients for the first time, one of our greatest missteps is that we fail to set proper expectations because we don't want to rock the boat. I'll give you guys another example in business. I've been under the knife only a couple times in my life where I was actually physically knocked out and they performed surgery on me. And most of the time, well, actually all the times, it was for a bicep and one allograft on my knee and two meniscal repairs. When I sat down with the doctor, what do you think the doctor told me? Do you think the doctor painted a picture of it was going to be easy peasy, rosy, and no problems? Or do you think he put a little bit of the fear of God in me?
Little fear.
Fear of God.
Why do you think a doctor does that? Forget about
Expect the worst and hope for the best.
So let's use the phrase that's very cliche. You under-promise and over-deliver, right?
Yep.
What does that do to you when you sit down in that meeting? It helps create a bar of expectation that is a lot more manageable, correct?
Yes.
When we meet with our clients, when we meet with our realtors, are we managing their expectations by telling them that I can get your loan closed? Or are we basically just skirting the issue that we all know is real? We all know that there is literally 100 things that could go wrong through the process, of which we as loan officers can maybe control 25 to 30 of them, but then you've got the appraiser, you've got the title company, you've got the seller, you've got the buyer, you've got the listing agent, you've got the buyer's agent, and the list goes on. All of these people in this process literally have an influence on when and how these loans close. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
So when we talk about our greatest referable asset, and we say it's communication, which is what you guys believe, are we not creating a proper bar of expectation to help pave the way for our ability to communicate effectively through the process? I'm going to tell you that most of the LOs that I talk to never once address the potential challenges that are going to impact the file at the initial time of application. And I guarantee you that not a single one of you has ever sat down with a realtor and presented them with the things that you know could go wrong through the process, and that you do a really good job of managing them to avoid most of the pitfalls and headaches. See, I've always figured that as an originator, our number one asset is communication, but communication broken down into 3 different barriers or 3 different levels. One is, and I'm recording this call, but I'm going to ask you guys to replay this or write this down if you guys want to. There are 3 things that we get paid to do. We get paid to consult, which falls under communication. We're willing to peel away the layers of the onion, ask the realtors tough, challenging questions about what makes their business work, what doesn't make their business work. We're going to dig deep. We're not going to be a person sitting behind a cubicle. We're not going to be a box that you can get at Home Depot. We're not going to be a person that just simply takes orders. We're going to be a consultant because of our years of experience. Is that fair? Would you guys, each of you guys, consider yourselves to be a consultant?
Yes.
Would you consider yourselves to be a great consultant?
Yes.
Well, you know, in my kind of practice, and especially in the last 6 months, or I feel like I'm a, what is the term when the Exxon Valdez spilled oil and then the PR firm came in? Huh?
Scapegoat?
Well, disaster relief, or
yep.
and to
disaster
recovery. I try to tell and not so much the realtors, but my borrower that, hey, your credit, I try to let them know that there's going to be issues along the way. But it seems, and maybe it's I'm not communicating it enough or effectively, but when the issues come up that I brought up, everyone is pointing, well, why is that happening?
And a large part of that has to do with your very first meeting when you set your bar of expectation. Bobby, you and I have talked about the way we have to frame ourselves in front of our clients from the moment you meet with them, whether, and again, when I say client, that could be realtor, financial planner, attorney, or consumer. When you meet with somebody for the very first time, you have a very limited chance to be able to create an impression upon them that makes you different than every other loan officer that's called on them or met with them up to that point. And part of the process that we're going to go through over the next couple of weeks is helping you guys identify that and create a sense of clarity so that when you speak with conviction, you speak with clarity, and you speak with confidence. And the reality is that when you talk about being a great communicator, nobody understands what that means. You know, if I tell you that I'm a great communicator and you say, well, what makes you a great communicator, you quickly fall into the categories that everybody labels themselves as. I'm available. I tell you the truth. I care. I want to help you. Here's my cell phone. I'm always going to be here for you. We start throwing ourselves, or in other words, we lean on people and we simply give ourselves away. The truth is that, what's that?
I would agree with that.
Yep. Our greatest misstep is that we fail to be clear on what our value is to our audience. And so when we talk about communication, I want you guys to look at this and kind of dissect it a little bit, because I'm going to give you the 3 components that make communication and what you do so vital that when you're able to speak this, it's going to help differentiate you from everybody else. So we're talking about being a consultant. And being a consultant isn't about just being a yes sir, yes ma'am, no problem, I'll make sure this happens. It's I don't agree. It's I'm going to challenge you. I know you think you know what you're talking about, but the truth is that you probably don't understand it completely. Mr. Realtor, here's a list of 100 things that could go wrong. All of these things play a factor into the process, and I literally give them a list. I mail out a list to my clients. I give a list to my clients when I meet with them face to face. I do all this because as a consultant, as a professional, I'm not here to simply pacify you or tell you that everything's going to be hunky-dory. My job is to give you the information that you seek, because you're asking me to take you down a process that arguably is the most stressful and the most vulnerable process that you will ever go through as far as your finances go, and you shouldn't take that lightly. So I'm not here to tell you that I'm going to tell you that everything's okay and that we'll be closing in 30 days. My job in some respects is to be a consultant, so that means I play devil's advocate, I play psychologist, I play financial advocacy. I do a lot more than just take a loan application. So that falls under communication. The second thing that I do is that I'm an extremely good negotiator. What that means to you, client and realtor, is that I'm going to negotiate the best possible result for this process by talking to you and asking the deep and thoughtful questions, and then managing the expectations that you guys have between the agents and between the buyer and the bank, trying to figure out the right conditions to settle up on, trying to answer those questions with you, the borrower, and then trying to manage the entire closing process, navigating all this stuff together. So you spend a lot of time negotiating between people. Is that fair? I mean, do you guys all believe that you spend part of your day as a loan officer negotiating?
Yes.
Right? I mean, probably more than just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So now, under the umbrella of communication, we've got consultant and we've got negotiator. And the last one, which is the one that most people fail at, when you speak to your audience, you too know that unequivocally you guys are the best at this. And that is your ability to manage people's fears and expectations. And that, my friend, is where we get paid the most. Everybody else says that they're a good consultant, but they're not. Everybody says they know how to negotiate. The truth is they don't. But where most people fail miserably, and you guys know this firsthand, is that we as an industry do a horrible job of managing people's fears and expectations. So when you sit down with your audience and in your head you're talking to them about what makes you referable, these are the 3 statements that you guys need to use in your dialogue to explain to them with clarity and conviction that this is why I'm different than the person down the road. Now, it doesn't matter that you guys have been in the business 20 years. It doesn't even matter that you guys can close loans on time. Because what a realtor is looking for is something different that resonates with them. And I've said this before, and I'll say this to you guys again. There's only one quality about you that makes you different than anybody else in our business. Bobby, you and I talked about this, didn't we?
Yes.
What is the one thing that makes you different than Saul right now?
Basically, the ability to communicate my referability to the client.
It's the words that come out of your mouth. That's the only difference between the three of us on the telephone. Ask yourself the question of, if I was going into a loan application and then Doug was going into the same loan application after me and then Bobby was going into the same loan application after Doug, who do you think stands the best chance at getting the client to work with them?
Saul, the one that communicates the best.
It's the one that
creates, that sets the expectations.
It's the one that creates a feeling in them. Somebody who creates a feeling that they can trust, that they can understand, and that they hear aligns with what they want. So when you talk to a realtor and you talk to a client, the three things that I've just described to you under the umbrella of communication is truly the definition of what you're communicating. When you sit down with your realtors and clients, you're not going to tell them that you're a great communicator or that you're an over-communicator. You're going to define for them what communication is. So the meeting with a realtor or client goes very similar like this. You know what, Mr. Realtor? It's an absolute pleasure to meet with you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. You know what? I got to be honest with you. I'm not even sure that we're going to be a good fit for working with one another, but I wanted just to bend your ear a little bit and tell you a little bit about what makes me different and what makes my business model work so well for me. And just so you know, I understand that this may not be a good fit, but I want you to know that I'm also interviewing you just like you might be interviewing me to see if this is a good partnership. But I've figured out on one level why our industry struggles. And you know as well as I do that relationships are the #1 key to our business, right guys? And they would always say yes. And I would say, what makes our transactions so difficult? And every realtor, every time would say, people not doing what they say they're going to do. People not doing what they say they should do. People not communicating. People not following through. And I go, it's amazing, right? So it all falls under communication. And they're like, absolutely. So if you knew exactly what was going on from the moment you started the process and everybody was 100% transparent and you knew exactly what was going on, every realtor says, I would be so much better to manage the expectations of my client. I would be so much less stressed out because it wouldn't be such a like a jack in the box. You know, jack in the box, when you turn the handle, it's always, you know, you keep waiting for it to pop. I think agents generally feel like every transaction that way is what happens when they don't have the confidence in the loan officer. They don't know the loan officer. And I said, to be honest, I've really broken down my communication into 3 levels. I'm a consultant, I'm a negotiator, and I manage people's fears and expectations. And the reason I do that is because I believe that that is my #1 asset, which makes me referable. And when I sit in front of you and I ask you what makes you referable and you can't communicate that to me, don't you feel like sometimes that your clients wonder the same thing? So what I'd like to do is figure out how I could help you with your business by working with you to teach you what it means to be able to communicate. And it starts by helping you understand what makes you referable. Because we know that we can all go out there and get business from cold calling and pounding the pavement, but let's be honest, that's hard work. That's not very, you can't sustain a happy life with that. So instead, let me work with you and teach you how I can help you become better at all 3 of those things while maximizing your abilities to speak to your clients in a way that makes you more referable. I usually started most of my conversations with my agents out that way. And what do you think the response? What's that?
I was saying I like that a lot. And from when I'm hearing you say that, I mean, I do it, I'm a 180. I do it as I see, probably not the most effective way.
Mm-hmm. The truth is that you're not saying things that people don't understand. You're not recreating the wheel here. You're just changing the language in which you speak with. See, again, it doesn't matter that you have the rates and the fees and your ability to close the loan. If you're in the business today, you have those abilities. You have to be competitive and you have to know what the hell you're doing. The problem is that how do you communicate with the other loan officers in the same office or on the same block? And the reality is it isn't rates and fees unless you want to compete on that. But I never wanted to compete on that. So instead, I had to craft a skill set around what I said that made me different. And a lot of it goes into the psychology and a lot of it goes into the human, the human mind. But the truth is it really isn't complicated when you understand that when you speak, if you can evoke an emotion, which is trust or a level of comfort, people are drawn into you, not even so much by the words, but just the genuineness and the consistency and the clarity of what you are. People are drawn into that. And your realtors, 9 out of 10 realtors will not be able to tell you what makes them referable except for the generic answers that you'll get from every single agent. Like, think about the things that you've heard agents say that make them unique. And to be honest, I would challenge you the next time you're meeting with a realtor is to ask them that question, because that's you being a consultant. If you really want to set the right tone for your meetings, ask them what makes them referable. Ask them what makes them different. What makes them a different realtor than the realtor that's in the cubicle next to them or in the broker office down the street. And if you start by saying, in all fairness, guys, it's really easy. It's what comes out of your mouth. And let me give you an example. I believe that communication is the greatest reason why our business fails so often with our consumer. And at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that we neglect because we fail to create an expectation that's manageable, and we fail to create a process that's referable. So what I want you guys to learn to do is, when you start meeting with your agents and you're calling on these new agents, the reason it's so frustrating to pick up the phone and call a new agent is because we don't have any value to give. We don't know what to say. What we say, we believe, but we don't say it in a way that attracts people to us. At the end of the day, every realtor says it's the same song and dance I've heard before. I've heard that. I don't. And you start getting voicemail. They hang up on the phone. They hang up the phone on you. They don't want to listen to you. So the message is that we have to first understand what our value is. And today was the first step in getting clarity around what are the things that make you different. As an originator, and I'm not talking about being a loan officer, as an originator, it starts with your ability to create and manage people's expectations. So do you think that the conversation that I had with you and the things that we talked about, do you think that helps create a better image and it helps create a better bar of expectation for you with your audience?
Yes.
Have any of you ever thought of using those words and phrases before in your presentation?
Yeah, I did, only because you told me about them several weeks ago.
But Bobby,
hey, Doug,
so, yeah.
I was going to say, to get kind of, after we talked last week, I dug up some stuff. I went through, this was years and years ago, I did a crash course with SunTrust through Zenix.
Yep.
And I pulled up, I just found what my unique value proposition is. And it's completely, I mean, it's not this. And I like what you're saying much better.
Why do you like what I'm saying much better?
Well, because I think it's more emotional and from the heart. I mean, my UVP, I'll read, it'll take 2 seconds. It's mortgage origination completed quickly, efficiently, and openly with all parties involved through a team concept that will set the standard of excellence you will demand from all your key business partners, guaranteeing smoother closings and more referrals from satisfied clients. So that was like my 30-second elevator speech.
Those are all words that people have heard before, but you can't qualify them. You can't qualify each one of those adjectives that you described. As much as I've written things like that, as much as I've said things like that in my networking groups and to my clients, people don't react to elevator pitches. People react to genuine communication about what's in it for them. See, everything you've just described in that UVP is all about you. And the truth in the matter is that if you want a real unique selling proposition, make it about your client. And so when you talk about I'm a consultant, and you talk about I'm a negotiator, and you talk about I'm a manager of fears and expectations, you turn it so that you're basically creating an image that they get. What's in it for them by you being a consultant and negotiator and a manager of fears and expectations? When you sit down with a realtor, the fact that you now have this makes you infinitely more credible as a professional because you've just crafted a conversation that an agent has never heard before, but yet it'll resonate with them. And you've never said this to a consumer, yet it'll resonate with them. When you can define what you get paid to do, as an originator, you get paid to create trust and confidence by communicating these values to them. The loan officer in you has to deliver on all those. But there's no point in talking about how to capitalize on those conversations through the process as a loan officer until you understand what your value is in the very beginning. And your unique selling proposition has nothing to do with mortgages. It has nothing to do with rates or timelines. It has to do with understanding the value of relationships and why this business has been so tarnished by part-time, lackadaisical, unmotivated, and very unprofessional predecessors. And that nobody cares. And you can't say the word care because that's so generic. So instead of saying care, you go, it's because I communicate better than anybody. And let me explain to you what that means. I've broken it into 3 categories. So Mr. Realtor, if I'm a great consultant with your clients, if I'm a great negotiator with your clients, and I can help manage their fears and expectations, do you believe that I'm the best person to create a relationship with you to help amplify, and you'll hear me say this for the rest of the time we coach, we are, for a lack of a better term, relationship amplifiers. Our job is to understand that by being introduced to a client, our number one and sole purpose is to amplify the relationship between the realtor and the client. And if we do that, essentially things create. Relationships expand. Relationships amplify. The realtor's confidence you increases, thus getting more referrals. The relationship with your client increases, thus his ability and willingness to want to refer you increases. But you can't even get to that point in the process until you've helped identify or reframed yourself in front of your audience to make them clear that you are a professional beyond what they've typically experienced. And it starts with getting them to understand what your unique selling proposition is. And your unique selling proposition isn't mortgages. It truly is your ability to understand what the greatest struggle in our business is. And it's communication. People don't deliver on what they promise because they don't know how to manage people's fears and expectations. And probably the biggest reason why they don't manage those is because they don't do a really good job negotiating. And probably the reason that they don't do negotiating and managing fears well is because they're not great consultants. They don't know how to set proper expectations. They don't know how to ask the difficult questions. They don't know how to analyze the data. They don't know what they're talking about. So they're all in sequence to one another. You've got to be a great consultant to be able to manage people, to be able to negotiate. And then in order to be a great negotiator, you've got to be able to help manage people's fears and expectations. All of it's tied in. So the next time that you guys, over the next 7 days, are in your meetings with your clients or your audience, please integrate that presentation into your conversations. It doesn't have to be fluid. It doesn't even have to be anything other than implemented. But you have to start implementing it. This stuff has to start being part of your daily conversation. Because if you don't, you're no better off than the person down the street, and you always will be judged based on your ability to close a loan on time or your rates or your fees. And I promise you, this doesn't guarantee you 100% of the people that you meet with are going to work with you, but it does separate you from everybody else, and it makes you look infinitely more attractive to the agents in the audience that really are looking for a partnership. Bam. That's my soapbox for today. How about that?
I like it. But hey, Doug, what I would like, can you email us the questions that you send out?
Questions. What do you mean?
You send out a list of questions?
Yep. I call it my turbulence letter. Yep.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I will work on that with you guys next week, but before you start implementing that, I want you guys to implement this conversation. Bobby,
Okay.
I think you've done that already, right?
Yes.
How's that been working for you? So Saul understands that it's not just hocus pocus.
No, I mean, it definitely, it gets their attention. It's a differentiator as far as I'm concerned.
What has been the feedback that you've gotten from the agents as far as, I mean, do they become more engaged at the point that you're able to bring that up? Does it shift the conversation from you being needy in regards to loans and leads, or does it create more of a belief that you're a little bit more value than most LOs?
It's definitely it adds in the light of adding more value in the relationship. Yeah.
How do you know that?
Just based on feedback. I mean, I've only used it on a few agents because as I mentioned to you before, I had several meetings prior to you and I starting the process, and so but from the feedback that I have received, it definitely the perception is that I am there offering or providing more value than the other folks. And I'll be honest with you, I've yet to go down the path about fees and rates and everything else. I don't even talk about it. Don't even come up in the conversation.
Right. Right. Well, here's an interesting piece of this that you guys might overlook. Any agent that's in your stable, this is a great follow-up conversation. This is a great conversation to have over a drink or lunch, because this is something that the agent could use in their own presentation. You want to become infinitely more valuable? Tell them that you've just now defined what the word communication means as it relates to your clients, that infinitely will increase the realtor's attraction to their clients and make them more referable, and help probably close listings and or buyer contracts. Try using that with some of the agents you already work with and tell them, hey, listen, I've got something that I'd like to share with you. I've got a communication, I've got a script for you that I think literally if you implement it into your business will help increase your referability and your clients' willingness to want to work with you when they're shopping you against other agents.
That's a great idea, especially for folks that I've already spoken with.
And let me give you guys a little bit of insight. Everything that I talk to you guys about eventually is going to be information that you can use to coach your realtors. Everything that I'm teaching you guys is exactly transferable to your agents. You want to build new relationships? Use it to help identify your differentiation. You want to strengthen your relationships? Start working with these agents on how they can increase their business by implementing some of the stuff that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, doesn't it make you look like a partner.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, can I ask just a question on what you went over, the 3 points?
Yeah.
On the negotiation side, and you're saying that as far as a negotiation, that both the realtor and my borrower understand what's going on, and I'm kind of running the consultant negotiating. They're the same to me.
The consulting is where you're asking the questions and peeling away the layers and really playing devil's advocate and really trying to get to the heart of what the whole end result looks like. Like, your job is to take what picture perfect looks like in your client's head. Your job is to extract that information and then to craft a process around making that happen. The negotiation is everything that happens through the process that doesn't go perfectly, that requires you to pick up the phone and talk to an underwriter or a processor or a listing agent or a seller. Those are things that you're negotiating. You're negotiating conditions, you're negotiating rates, you're negotiating a bunch of things through the process.
Gotcha.
And the style in which you deliver that and the way in which you communicate is where the managing of fears and expectations come in. You proactively pick up the phone. You proactively set the bar of expectation up in the beginning. I mean, all the things that are going to unfold during the process fall in under one of those three things.
Gotcha.
You may only negotiate a very little, but what you're doing every time you dialogue with a client or a realtor is one of those three things. Either you're asking the questions to dig deep, or you're negotiating between what's reality and what isn't reality for the realtors, and then you're dealing it with the client, like what's reality and what isn't reality. And then managing of the fears and expectations fall into making sure everybody understands that what's going on is typical, and you empathize with them, and you help them, and you hold their hand through the process at times. All of that falls in under communication.
Gotcha. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Total. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. That's my soapbox for today. So what I'll do is I'll do the record, or I'll do the link. I'll send it out to you guys later today, and we'll go from there. But next week, I want you guys from now and then to implement this. And then next week, we're going to start working on, again, helping to create more of a dialogue with your realtors and helping them understand your differentiation by helping create the bar of expectation. I'll send you guys the turbulence list and things that, pose challenges for, clients and realtors that help amplify your relationship by being the true consultant.
Okay, sounds good. And Todd had emailed me earlier about the time on the call, and I told him I thought it was 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know either, buddy. But I'll send him the link as well. So if there's anything else that you guys need, just give me a holler.
I appreciate it.
You guys, we'll talk to you next week. Make it a great week.
All right, you too, Bobby. Nice meeting you.